Welcome to the show. It's IB Countdown to Kickoff, Part 2. It is our second countdown to kickoff of the season. It is the home opener, Notre Dame and Tennessee State, along with Vince D'Addario and Jesse Stiers. I am Sean Stiers. Guys, a convincing 42-3 win over Navy last week. Vince, Jesse and I were talking in our pre-show meeting before you chimed in backstage. You know, we have kind of talked this game to death this week. I mean, that's what we do, and we have shows, multiple shows every day. So I don't want to. I don't know how deep we really want to go back into. There's some things that we'll pull out of there. Let's just. Is there any one thing, stat line where whatever it happens to be that jumps out at you that really stood with you from last week's game?
If you think we don't have a lot to talk about last week's game, give it a week. I have a feeling it might be worse.
Fair.
But I think the stat line that jumps out to me, and it's another stat line I would like to see repeated in today's game, would be they scored on their first 5 possessions and all touchdowns. You know what I mean? Like that, it was efficient. It was surgical, like 5 drives, 5 touchdowns. They didn't leave any question marks on the field. Like, okay, that's the offense that we wanted to see. Now, if you get into the offense, there's a bunch of little things that you'd like to see improved. It's week 1, whatever. Mm-hmm. But that's the stat line for me. 5 possessions, 5 touchdowns.
I would say the stat line that stood out to me, this was hard for me because I like a lot of stats, and I thought there was a lot of things that stood out to me. But I think that the number one thing is, we expected kind of the level of play offensively and defensively. We weren't sure what degree that was going to be taken to. So it's really hard to comment on offense and defensively, kind of expectations or something that stood out with that. But I think the thing that stood out the most to me was there was only one penalty that Notre Dame committed the entire game. And to me, playing a team like Navy where it's a lot of disciplined football, when you're blowing out a team, having to stick to playing disciplined football, I think that's something that is impressive and that'll help you win tighter games is when you're not making mental mistakes. And then like just the overall discipline shift, I think, from last year to this year. And I hope that kind of continues on.
Yeah, mine, I piggyback on that. No turnovers.
Yeah.
No sacks allowed, and just the one penalty. So like when you think of when you play Navy, you're going to have to play a disciplined game because the one thing that those guys are going to do is play a disciplined, hard brand of football. And Notre Dame matched that and then some. For a season opener, especially with all these different, variables that were in play. A new offensive, we talked about it last week, new offensive coordinator, new offensive line coach, new quarterbacks coach, all these different links in the communication lines on the sidelines. Second year head coach, Marcus Freeman, things that we were looking, like one of the biggest questions that we had is sort of the consistency of a Marcus Freeman team. And I mean, it was impressive. Not just the way, like you said, Vince, the fact that they scored those 5 touchdowns on those 5 possessions is very impressive. And then you throw on this other stuff along with it. It was, people can talk about, well, it's Navy all they want, but as I mentioned to, I mentioned this earlier this week to the Bucknuts fan that was coming at me on Twitter, like, not a lot of Power 5 teams want to go out there and play Navy anytime soon, but Notre Dame plays them every year.
Good point. You're not wrong about that, even though there's some Notre Dame fans that don't want to have Navy on the schedule. It's never going to change. Get over it. But I enjoy the matchup. I'm glad Notre Dame did what they were supposed to do against them. Again, I think they faced the biggest adversity getting there, acclimating, and doing all of that, as opposed to what happened between the whistles. But at the same time, Notre Dame has had more talent than Navy literally every time they've stepped on the field. And it hasn't always looked like it.
Right.
And so it looked like it on Saturday, bottom line. And that's what is supposed to happen.
Yeah, I liked putting Navy first. I think if that's a takeaway from, the first game of the year and people not wanting to play Navy. The fact is, like Vince said, you're always going to play Navy. And I like the idea of putting Navy first. It gets it over with. It allows you to come away with, very minimal injuries. And it's just a good way to kind of start off your season, I feel like, with a good, playing good disciplined football.
That is something Jesse and I talked about earlier this week, Vince, is if you're going to play Navy, you're going to play them every year. You've made this gentleman's agreement to play them every year. Maybe the compromise needs to be start every year with them. And just from the things that Jesse was talking about, you're putting yourself, Notre Dame, in a better position to be successful by doing it at the start of the season rather in the middle of the season. And I think that there is more excitement now.
Yes.
Maybe if it's every year, it could wear off at some point. But
it's still the first game of the year.
Yeah, it's the first game of the year.
Right.
There's going to be more excitement for Notre Dame Navy than late October, early November when it's typically played.
Yeah. Plus, you can prepare. You can do all the things that you need to do. I mean, they started preparing for this game in the spring, somewhat, right? And so you can kind of piece it in and do the different things that you need to do, and then after week 1. You're done.
You're done with it.
You don't have to worry about it anymore.
You just wipe it clean because you're never going to have to play that way again all season.
And it can be a game just like they've always done. Even if it's a Notre Dame game, you could start the season with the Shamrock Series if you wanted to in some NFL stadium. Or, you can obviously play it on campus still at Notre Dame. If it's a Navy game, it's typically going to go to an NFL stadium. So I just think that you build a lot more excitement for this game at the very front of the schedule than burying it in the middle of the season. And then it obviously becomes a one-off where, again, you've got to go from playing traditional offenses. Now you've got to get prepared for Navy on a short week. And then you come out of Navy hoping that you're not going to have a bunch of guys banged up.
True.
And then you have to go back to a traditional offense again. I think it makes a lot of sense.
It really does. I don't know if they have any control over that at this point, but I mean, look, Notre Dame's got to be able to drive this to a degree because there's no chance Navy doesn't want Notre Dame.
Exactly.
Right? There's no chance. And Navy's in a conference, so they're going to have a lot of their non-conference games up front. I don't see how it doesn't work if Notre Dame pushes for that to happen, which I think they should. It's okay to kind of tip the scale a little bit, put your thumb on the scale. It's okay. You're still having the rivalry. You're still going back and forth, home away. But, let's do a game 1.
Working in your favor. That's right. So Notre Dame now has to move on from the triple option attack to a more traditional look this week and the rest of the way, for that matter. Here's Marcus Freeman from earlier this week discussing how they go about that.
Part of that is in the preparation, okay, is that we did not just go exclusively Navy-only defense. Within our Navy personnel, we were able to play, as I call, normal defense. And we saw some normal formations out of Navy, right? So we were able to really do that in our preparation. So I think the adjustment from where we were to now won't be a big one because we've been able to do it through camp. Even when we go against our offense, it's good on good, and we've got to be able to play normal defense versus our offense. And so I really think that the transition back to just playing normal defenses won't be tremendous. The other thing is that we have to be smart during our preparation, right? Like, you can't go from that Navy game plan to a game plan this week that is super complicated, right? You got to make sure our only objective for our coaches, I said, is make sure our great players play great. And so in order to do that, that is a coach and a player challenge, right? As coaches, you have to give your great players an opportunity to play great by making sure you do things that they can execute. Players, you have to embrace that and understand, okay, here's the game plan. I'm going to study it. I'm going to work it so that on Saturday I have a chance to go out there and play great.
So you guys have both coached against our local version of Navy, Mishawaka, and their option before, coached or played against that. So do you see any difficulties going from facing the option to a regular offense the next week?
I would start by saying that Marcus Freeman brings up a good point of that they've established kind of their base, what I would say, their base defense. And then you started to get into more intricacies of, specific kind of alignments based off of what the other team is giving you. And that's not just exclusive to Navy, again, like they prepared for some of the triple option stuff that'll be exclusive to Navy. But then you heard Marcus Freeman say, there was some formations and personnel stuff that they'd seen before. So they've lined up in more common kind of formations. And again, that plays back to, again, their kind of base defense or their foundation of their defense. So, Tennessee State's not going to be any different. There's going to be some things that, they're going to have to adjust to, that Tennessee State does exclusively themselves. Sure. But again, that's every opponent. You come out of your base defense and kind of, tinker with some stuff here and there based off specific looks that teams are giving you week by week. So I don't see it as a huge adjustment. It's just, moving on to the next game plan and really, executing it.
Well, and I'll harken back to the conversation we just had about the fact that Navy's week 1 and how beneficial that is. Well, it's also beneficial because you've been running your base defense all of fall camp. I mean, 85% of the time you're running your base defense and your nickel. And
you're lining up against your offense.
Exactly.
Basically.
And so, yes, leading up to Navy, it's mostly Navy defense and all of that. But you've been running your base stuff for weeks. So flushing Navy, the guys are gonna be like, okay, let's go. I'm good with flushing Navy. Let's go play some actual, defense against the spread offense. And that's what they're gonna do. And so I think even more so having Navy week 1, they've been able to play in their base and their nickel and all that fun stuff all the way up until Navy. And so this isn't going to be a big deal at all.
Are there some things, or what are some things maybe that you saw last week from Notre Dame's defense that could translate the best going forward?
I would say the things that stuck out the most to me were the physicality that the defense played with, the tenacity that the defense played with. Everyone was just moving fast into the ball very quickly. And then a big thing that stuck out for me was in Al Golden's press conference earlier this week, where he talked about his linebackers being problem solvers and being able to execute and figure things out on the field on the fly. And I think that's important because of kind of the stuff we just talked about. You're not going to, Tennessee State, Navy, whoever, they're going to come out in something that you didn't practice or something that you didn't see on film. And so when you have problem solvers on the field who don't panic because it's not something that they've gone through and can kind of figure it out on the fly, I think that's something that's very important for when you get more high leverage, situations going forward against the Ohio States, the USCs, and the Clemsons that everyone's, kind of worried about. So I think those are the biggest takeaways that I would take defensively.
I mean, it's linebacker play for me. I thought the 3 linebackers overall played extremely well. Now, a lot of that has to do with how well the defensive line played, right? I mean, they were able to scrape and move and come downhill and do all of those different things. But this defense is either going to be really, really good because the linebackers are really, really good, or they're going to be average because the linebackers are average. And I thought in game 1 for Notre Dame, I thought the linebackers played exceptionally well. And that is a great catalyst for moving forward because those are also the leaders of your team too. Like, right. You say what you want to, but the 3 guys that are there, they've been on this team for a long time. They are veterans. This defense is going to go as they go. And if they can continue down the path that they're on with the way that they played against Navy, and they continue to play that way against Tennessee State and NC State, et cetera, this defense is going to be really good.
Yeah, they're going to have to keep proving it every week because there are a lot of doubters when it comes to that unit specifically. I just think the combination of being in the second year of Al Golden's defense, the fact that Golden talked about paring things down, and like this is a guy who was in the NFL for 6 years and coming back to college. And when we talked about it earlier this week, people were saying, wow, he played against Navy in the triple option before.
That was 10 years ago.
Yeah, that's right. It's been a long time. And there's
you don't just wake up and remember how to defend the triple option after 10 years.
Exactly.
I do.
Yeah.
In your sleep, right?
That's right. Because I hate it.
Yeah. All those different things and simplifying. Like, he talked about how last year, coming out of the NFL and into college, he had all these things that he wanted to be a part of his defense. And we've talked about it before, how maybe there was just too much he was trying to heap on to these guys. And he's like, okay, after a year doing this back in college at Notre Dame, I figured out what I could throw out and how we could narrow it down and get better. So I think the combination of those things, the players themselves having the year of experience in now a pared down defense, and what you mentioned, Vince, the fact that the defensive line is going to be so much improved in front of those linebackers, it's going to do nothing but help them out
right
over the course of the entire season. So it is home opener, and it's a little bit interesting this year because typically, you might have a freshman here, freshman there, not a whole lot of freshmen who are playing in a home opener this early in the season. Obviously, Jaden Greathouse is out there. Christian Gray was out there last week. Jeremiah Love was out there last week. There's some young guys, their first home game experience. Here's Marcus Freeman on that.
You got a little taste of it in Dublin, Ireland, because it was a home game for us. But they've never played at Notre Dame Stadium. And so I want them to embrace it, right? Embrace the moment, embrace being in this special place. But that has nothing to do with you doing your job. And that's the common theme, right, is that you'll hear me say is that we get a chance to come back into this stadium with our great fans, with our students, in what I believe would be just a packed and great stadium. But with all that being said, embrace it, enjoy it pregame, but once the foot hits the ball, you're focused on one thing, that's win the interval. You're focused on just doing your job on that play, and nothing else matters. We often say 120 by 53 in the third, right? Same thing as in Dublin, Ireland. Like, that's really what matters. Enjoy it, because not every place in the country is like Notre Dame Stadium, but your focus has to be, once the game starts, just to win the interval. Do those things that we talk about that it takes to win each play.
120 by 53 and a third. Is that kind of the Hoosiers version of the hoop is the same height no matter what? Is that kind of what that was a reference? Like a football reference to that?
Pretty much. Yeah, that's 100% what it is, because he's right. Every football field in the country, barring an old man painting the lines, is exactly the same. I mean, whether it's Pee-wees, high school, junior high, college, NFL, it's all the same. Hashes are different. That's the only difference, right? And I think field goal posts move in as you get up. But other than that, it's exactly the same. And so he makes a really, really good point. I mean, it sounds cliche, especially when you bring it up compared to a movie quote, but he's 100% correct. It's the same football field that they've been playing on forever.
I came very familiar with the dimensions of a football field when Vince was my football coach, because we ran sprint laps around the field and you were hugging those sidelines because you didn't want to run any extra than you had to. But no, I like the sentiment that, that these freshmen have to embrace the moment and the opportunity that they're given, to play. Not all true freshmen get this opportunity. And so the amount of them that are out there, and the stage and the magnitude of, being at Notre Dame and the student body, like he talked about, and all of the people and the capacity of Notre Dame Stadium, and, how seriously it's taken among the fan base, and all of that can be enjoyed. But once, like he said, once the game starts, I thought that the message was really good too, of just, focus on your job, simple it down, and don't allow the emotion of the games to allow you to do something stupid, to make a mistake, to blow your assignment, etc. There's nothing wrong with, like you said, embracing the moment, but when the game starts, just simplify it and focus on doing your job. And I think it's really a good thing to get these freshmen experience early and out of the way, because then, it allows them to, as their sophomores and juniors, to just play at a high level and really no more of feeling like the crowd is on top of you and the game is moving so fast. It allows them to kind of break in faster. So I like it. And I like that Marcus Freeman's taking advantage of, that these guys, the talent that they have, and using it on the field.
I'm sure it helps that they've practiced in there. They had the blue
Sure.
gold game in there, like for guys who were early enrollees, they've scrimmaged in there and that kind of stuff. It will be a different environment, though, when they are out there actually strapping it on for the first time and there's 70,000 in the stands.
No doubt. So. I mean, and it's, I'm very curious to see what the crowd is like for Tennessee State, to be perfectly honest with you. They got a taste of it, a taste in Ireland, because it was very pro Notre Dame. There's no doubt about it, right? So they got a taste of it, and they got an even lesser of a taste during the spring. But there's nothing like a fall game day on campus. And it's not even just what they're doing in the game, right? It's the whole weekend. Like, people start arriving in town, on Thursday night or Friday. And, it's a whole look, Jesse's lived here. Obviously, we live here. Like, the whole town is taken over, right? On game weekend. And when you're a townie like we are, it's like, well, stay away from campus, and all that kind of, like, it envelops the whole area. And so it's everything, right? It's going to stay in a hotel the night before of a home game and then coming back, the mass, the player walk, like all of that. They haven't done any of that stuff. So that's all new. And so it's going to be an adjustment. It's going to be an adjustment.
That's I forgot about like things like the player walk, since they brought it back from the Basilica and the whole thing. A lot of different game day experiences they'll be experiencing for the first time. That's for sure. Yep. Well, it is Tennessee State, and it's going to be the first FCS school Notre Dame has ever faced, first HBCU school, historically black college and university, that Notre Dame has ever faced. I don't feel like any of us feel particularly great about the fact that Notre Dame has jumped off, and I believe, I haven't seen any, does this make them the last FBS school to finally play in FCS? I believe it was them and UCLA at some point. I thought that UCLA had already done so. I think that this makes Notre Dame the last one to actually play against an FCS school.
Is it really? Because there was like a group, and I used to know the group. I used to remember what the group was. And I can't remember what the group is, to be perfectly. I thought USC was there for a while. Maybe it's UCLA, but either way, that was kind of a badge of honor for Notre Dame, in my opinion. Like, I absolutely use that in arguments with like Michigan fans and Ohio State fans. Like, 100%. My buddy is hanging the Sports Illustrated. He's a huge Notre Dame fan, and he's got a bunch of Sports Illustrateds hung up in his basement, right? The one non-Notre Dame Sports Illustrated he has is the one that has Appalachian State on it after they beat Michigan, right? I mean, how do you not go to that when you're having an argument with a Michigan fan? Now we can't even argue that anymore. Like,
that's all you had to do. You can slap anybody down with their arguments. Yeah. Notre Dame's never played an FCS, but that's done now.
Now they have, and it sucks.
Yeah, it sucks. It's not ideal. But you got to look at it as, the opportunities of, playing at HBCU. I just hope that this doesn't become a repeated pattern. Like, if this is a one-off, you'll quickly kind of get over it. Be like, okay, yeah, the one time Notre Dame did it. Sure. And you can go back to your argument. I think it becomes more of an issue for me if you see this, as an annual thing, year in and year out, which I don't think it will, and I certainly don't hope that it doesn't. But again, it's an opportunity for them to kind of go out and try some things and really kind of figure out, experiment a little for some of the bigger games that are coming up. It's like they're taking like a ladder, each week and building up to some of these games, and it'd be nice to see them kind of continue that of building off of some of the things from last week.
Well, and you said, like, it gives them a chance to experiment, but it also brings up overconfidence, like how much overconfidence could be a factor. Marcus Freeman addressed that this week.
Yeah, I talked to the staff about this last night, and we all have to be saying the same thing, right? Is that we don't need some type of false narrative, some type of don't overlook any opponent. Like, we don't need that. Let's talk about what really matters, and that's winning today, right? And that's going to take care of Saturday. If we win this Monday, right? And that's what we all have to be saying in our meeting rooms, because I've said this to you guys before. Their voices are so much stronger than mine because they're with them so much longer. And so our coaches have to be saying the same thing in that position. Guys, don't worry about Saturday. Don't worry about exactly hey, can we go 2-0? Can this make us, start just catapulting the season? Like, why did we have success on Saturday? What do we have to do to have success today? And really focus on that. And so that's going to be the motivation to me is like, can we have a great Monday? Can we learn? Right? We say we win and we learn. So we won the game. What can we learn in this hour or two meetings that we're going to have? As we look back at the last game, right? And I feel like I'm having a team meeting right now, right? Like, we're going to look, this first hour, we're going to look at the last game. Your job is to learn. We have to learn. It's a challenge. You have to learn from last game. Good, bad, doesn't matter. Learn from it. Now as we get ready for our opponent the second hour, right? Study the heck out of it. Let's learn the game plan. What is our thoughts, okay? And then we got to go out there and have a great 45-hour walkthrough or jog through. And that's got to be our focus. Like it's us versus Tennessee State today. That's our mindset. They have meetings in practice today, and we have meetings in practice today. Who's going to have the better meetings in practice? And if we can keep motivating them to just win these moments, Saturday will take care of itself. It will. And as we get into next week, it'll take care of itself. But don't start looking ahead. And it's me too. Right? Don't start looking, okay, Tennessee State. Oh man, here we go. No, it doesn't matter. That stuff doesn't matter. Because if you lose today, guess what? The result of what you want on Saturday is going to be what you really, really want. So you have to just focus on right now on the day and truly win today.
So, guys, you look at Notre Dame, Tennessee State. What do you need to see in this game to make you feel good about the Irish in a game that they are heavily favored? So heavily favored that there is not a Vegas line on this game. Nothing.
I think the number one thing is you want, and it's kind of echoing what a lot of Marcus Freeman was saying there. You just want that, throughout the week that they were trying to get better, they were practicing, and it sounds like that it's like almost, take away the opponent and really challenge yourselves to get better. And so that we progressively get better as a team throughout the week. And that like throughout the week is kind of like he was saying, like the, class or the periods or whatever. And then Saturday is ultimately your exam kind of that week, or did you get better this week? And I think that's kind of how you have to look at it, is just getting better or building off of, the good things that you did against Navy and eliminating, some of the bad things, even though that they were minor, that you did against Navy. So for me, like offensively, I would just like to see a continuation of, the pass game, opening it up more, figuring out different, offensive sets and formations that they can use to attack a different defense. And then defensively, you'd like to see maybe a few more turnovers, big plays, sacks, tackles for loss, that kind of stuff, building off of some of the good stuff you did, but then making it kind of, more great this week. And so, again, challenge yourself to get better every day and almost taking away, the name of the opponent and just going out there and playing your best football.
Did anybody else notice at the end of that audio clip that he went a little Spice Girls among what you really, really want? Did anybody else notice that? All right.
I didn't.
Just checking. Okay.
I'm just glad you got a musical reference in.
You like that? See, it was a Spice Girls reference, but it was still a reference. So, no, I mean, look, Jesse's 100% right. I mean, we have all coached games. We've all been a part of games where it's a mismatch. Right. And that's what this is. It's a mismatch. Right. And it's no disrespect to Tennessee State or anything like that, but it's a mismatch. I mean, it's Notre Dame and there's Tennessee State. And so you have to go into a game like this and it has to be what are we going to work on? What are we going to do to get through this game and make ourselves better, regardless of whoever's on the other side? It doesn't matter. These are our goals. This is what we want to do. And so I think the coaching staff needs to be very specific about what they want to accomplish, right? Is it 5 possessions, 5 touchdowns again? And then you kind of drill down into, okay, but what does that look like? We want, this kid to get this many snaps, this kid to get this many snaps, and we want no penalties, and we want, let's move the line of scrimmage offensively 2 to 3 yards down the way every single play, manufacture some benchmarks that you can hit, whatever those are, whatever identity you have as a team, whatever those benchmarks are, establish them. And that's what you're going to get. It's not about the score. It's not about the spread. It's not about any of that stuff in a game like this. It's about the little things. Okay, did we meet this benchmark? Did we meet this benchmark? Did we meet this benchmark? That's what you got to do.
And this is a little bit different, but at the same time, Jesse did his whiteboard the other day on this game, looking at the Tennessee State defense. They're going to run a 4-2-5, which is also the same defense Ohio State runs. So it's kind of like Ohio State JV. Like it at least least gives you because we had a question about how much do you show in this game in terms of how you're going to attack it and how much do you save maybe for Ohio State. Well, at the very least, it gives you the opportunity to play with some things early to see what's successful, what's not successful, because no matter what, Ohio State is going to have a much higher level of athlete who's going to be playing defense against you than Tennessee State. So can you succeed in some of those micro things like you're talking about specific to that? And can you keep playing error-free football and keep looking very precise, non-lethargic? That's the biggest thing to me. And let's be honest, that's part of, like, they can talk about, well, we're playing at HBCU and this will benefit them because they'll get the money for the buy game and all that different stuff. But this is on the schedule where it is as kind of part of a compromise, because you were going to go to Dublin and rather than coming home and even playing a Central Michigan from the MAC, you're going to play an FCS team because it kind of gives you a bye. Well, you've got to look sharp still in the process. So that's the biggest thing for me. And like, if I flip that and say, what's the biggest concern that I would like, what would make me feel concerned the most coming out of this game? It's just if they go out there and look really sloppy and start doing some of the things that they didn't do against Navy, turning the ball over, false starts, all these mental error kind of things.
Self-inflicted wounds.
Yes, that's what would make me feel the most concerned coming out of this game. You guys feel the same?
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
That's 100% true.
So after Tobias Meriwether went without a catch last week, do you come out and try to find him right away if you're Jared Parker? There's been a lot of talk, obviously, about Tobias coming out of that game. How do you feel about this? I still kind of fall in the category that it's going to take care of itself over the course of the season. How do you guys feel?
I think here's how I feel about it. Do you come up with some concepts where he might be the number one receiver? Sure. Why not? Absolutely. And he's your number one guy most of the time anyway. And so those are going to naturally happen. And then you just have to trust the quarterback that he's going to go through his progressions and that's where the ball's going to go. Right. I don't think you force feed it. I don't like that plan. I'd like him getting his touches, getting his plays within the course of the offense. Yeah. And everything's going to be just fine. He dropped one ball, folks. One. And here's the other thing. I believe, based on, watching the film back and all of that, the play where I believe he threw the ball to Deion Colsey on the right-hand side on the out, Tobias Meriwether was wide open by about 5 or 6 yards. If Sam Hartman has the time to actually go through his progressions, he's hitting Meriwether for a touchdown.
Yeah.
But he got pressure, and so he went and completed the ball and did exactly what
he also got pressure because a freshman running back did not properly.
He went the wrong way.
Yeah.
100%. Yep. And he went to the right and he should have stayed left, and et cetera. And you are 100% accurate. And so if that gets picked up, I believe that's a touchdown. And we're not even having this conversation, right?
Yeah.
So
we're talking about Tobias, 1 catch, 1 touch.
Yeah.
At the very least.
2 catches, 2 touchdowns. You know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I'm with you on this one, Sean. It's going to happen naturally, and he's going to make plays, and people are going to forget all about the fact that he dropped one ball.
Yeah, I think this is an easy one, and echoing a lot of what Vince said, I'll keep it kind of short and sweet. There's no reason to force it or make it feel not natural. He's going to get his catches, especially in this offense. The ball is going to find him. I'd say the only thing that I would potentially look at is, they script the first, 10, 15 plays or so. I wouldn't mind seeing, maybe a scripted play, home run ball to Tobias. But again, I'm not forcing anything, but a nice scripted play where he's, the main target. I don't see anything wrong with that. But if the read's not there, the read's not there. And that's ultimately, that's the name of Sam Hartman's game, is he's going to take what's there and get the ball to the best option every time.
Look, Jaden Greathouse and Jaden Thomas having pretty big games, and even throw Deion Colsey in there, that's going to do nothing but help Tobias, because that means that attention is going to have to be paid to them, and it's going to leave Tobias open at some point. And that's what, when you have a quarterback with the experience of Sam Hartman, he showed last week he's not going to force the ball to one person. He's going to find the open guy. He's going to make the appropriate reads. So again, I'm not concerned in the least bit. Here's what I'm concerned about.
Whoa.
Whether or not you guys are ready for rapid fire.
Oh, come on, Sean. You're playing with my emotions.
Vince just gets fired up every time. I love it.
He does. He does. I'm even going to throw an audible at you in rapid fire with the second question. So we'll see where this goes.
I like audibles. Hot route.
For the first one, that's right. Red 7. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Brady Quinn says this Notre Dame football team is the best he's ever seen.
Take it away, Vince. No,
Okay.
you're leading us.
Okay, I'll lead it off. I love hitting lead off. All right. It's a teensy-weensy bit homerish, but I love it. And you know what? He's Brady Quinn. He is everybody's favorite son if you're a Notre Dame fan. He is literally the backup quarterback that they want in the game in the booth, right? I mean, he's that guy.
Right.
Like, that's why he is so freaking popular, because everybody wants him in the booth, right?
That's true.
And so whatever he says, people are going to worship it. And so he's playing up the crowd, man. Like, look, I respect his opinion. I think this team could be really, really good. There's no doubt about it. I think they're super deep. I think they're super talented. I predicted 11 wins, right? I think they can do a lot of great things. But I mean, he's playing to the masses, baby. But I kind of love it. So it's okay.
I'm going to say this is premature love, because I think that there is the opportunity for this to very, very well be true. I have a lot of confidence. And again, I know it's one game, but seeing Sam Hartman, what he did on a bad team last year, and you combine the offensive line and the 5 running backs and the 6 different wide receivers that caught passes on Saturday. He's just
and the 7th who didn't, who's going to.
Right. And then you add in the fact that there's a 7th. So you have 7 wide receivers, you have 5 running backs. There's a total of 12 skilled players that are all folding into this offense.
And they didn't even throw to the tight end, Jesse.
Yeah.
Right. The tight ends didn't even catch a ball at any point. So it's like the fact that you can, start playing with all these different toys if you're Sam Hartman. Yeah, I think the opportunity is there, especially if the defense is going to play how they did, all against Navy. But that's the thing, it's only one sample size. And so that's why it's premature, but I appreciate the love. And I think the love is there, and I think it's going to go a long way this season.
Premature is my word. It is very premature at this point to start saying they're the best. Now, talk to me if they're 5-0, because we all know what 5-0 means.
That's
right.
True.
Like, talk to me if they're 5-0, and we'll start having that conversation. I think it's got a chance to be a really good team. But again, I want to see some consistency against this stretch of the schedule here coming up. Everyone's been talking about next week at North Carolina State, noon game, and all that different stuff. I've never been overly concerned about that game, but it's going to be a Power 5 opponent. It'll be their first Power 5 opponent, so it is at least going to be, on the road. It's at least going to be a step up in competition.
It's like a 7 a.m. alarm.
Yeah, no kidding. Maybe even earlier than that. It's like, big boys, get up and get your breakfast. It's
exactly. It's an early morning when you start thinking about playing a noon game.
Yeah, exactly. So a little early on that. Talk to me if they're 5-0, and I think that there's a legit conversation to be had if they are 5-0 at that point here in about 3 weeks. So I wanted to go back to something Jesse and I talked about on the show the other day. Urban Meyer's comments about Sam Hartman transferring. to Notre Dame. Vince, have you heard his comments, or have you seen his comments? Okay.
Nope.
Ooh,
I'm in
so
I'm in the dark.
So Jesse and I talked about it a little bit, and I started thinking some more about some
That's where we
different
like to keep you.
aspects of what he said that I thought would be worth discussing with the three of us here. So one thing that he said was Notre Dame needs to recruit a 5-star quarterback, and that they basically need to be 3 deep at the quarterback position with that kind of talent because they're Notre Dame and they should be on par with the other top programs around the country. I don't think any of us disagree on that. It's something that we've talked about before. Do any of us disagree with
Nope.
that aspect of what he said?
Stockpile the talent, baby.
I mean, yeah, I
Stockpile.
think that's been the biggest complaint over the last 2 decades is the inconsistent development at quarterback and really trying to force someone into an offense that doesn't really showcase or premiere an elite quarterback. And I think that is also plays into it as well.
Yeah, that's like we've talked about. You give yourself, you don't have to have a roster full of 5-star guys across the board if you have a quarterback who's at least in that 5-star, even if he doesn't end up being rated a 5-star, who's at least considered in that quality.
Right.
And not just one of them. Again, because we had a listener say, well, to be fair, Phil Jurkovec was really highly rated. Tyler Buckner was really highly rated. That's true. But to Urban Meyer's point, you can't just have one of those guys. And we've talked about this before, Vince. You can't just have one of those guys every 3 or 4 years. You've got to have, at a minimum, 2 of those guys in the same room. And as Urban Meyer is saying, you need to be 3 deep so that you have competition with guys of all the same quality so that you're not falling back a couple tiers like we've seen it's over the last few years.
Yep, completely agree. I mean, that and quarterback is by far the most important position on the football field. And I think we can all agree on that because what would this team look like with a different quarterback at the helm? Right? I mean, that quarterback's the most important. We've said Notre Dame's been a quarterback away for a long time. And now they have a guy who's a 6-year senior, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I agree completely. Now, you could go like 5-4, 5-4, like that kind of a thing. And I'd be okay with it because you want a guy to get maybe more than 1 year starting. But like, look where Alabama is right now.
But you don't want to go 4-3, 4-3.
No, you want to go 5-4, 5-4.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you can take a flyer. Like if you get a 5-star, CJ Carr, right? You can take a flyer on the class after him. I'm okay with that. You know, you go and you get a kid who you like where he's at. You know, he needs a little bit of development, like a Deuce Knight. I think he's super talented, but he needs time to kind of incubate a little bit, right? That's the kind of guy you bring in after a guy like CJ Carr, right? So I think they're starting to do what they want to do, assuming Deuce Knight, of course, comes to Notre Dame. But like, this is what you want to do. This is how you can create great classes because offensive guys want to come with great quarterbacks.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Great quarterbacks are going to recruit great players.
Look at Cam Williams. Look what he did over the weekend, or last weekend, you know, in his game. Like his stat line was unbelievable and the actual film was even better. He's coming to Notre Dame because he knows CJ Carr is going to be throwing him the football, right? Yeah. Those are the kind of classes that you can create when you've got a stud quarterback.
Right. That's exactly right.
I would say my only complaint, devil advocate here is, you know, Urban Meyer has to realize that, especially now, a lot of good quarterbacks are coming out of the transfer portal, right?
Now,
so that's the flip side of it. Of, you know, I mean, just look at some of these guys, and this is kind of like the conversation we were having, you know, backstage a little bit ago. It's just like Caleb Williams, transfer quarterback, Jalen Hurts, transfer quarterback.
Vince hasn't heard his full comment, so let me kind of lay it out there for the context, remember, because basically what started this other stuff that we just talked about was Urban Meyer saying that he was surprised that Notre Dame needed to go to the transfer portal to get Sam Hartman from Wake Forest. And to Jesse's point, like, go down the list. Caleb Williams, a transfer quarterback, just won the Heisman Trophy. Justin Fields transferred from Georgia to Ohio State. Joe Burrow transferred from Ohio State to LSU. LSU currently has Jaden Daniels from Arizona State. Go back to Oklahoma. Baker Mayfield, Jalen Hurts, both transfer quarterbacks. So it's not like other big programs haven't went out and, and got transfer quarterbacks to come in. To Jesse's point, like he was just saying, I wonder if maybe Urban Meyer was kind of throwing some shade back on Brian Kelly in all of this, because the quarterback recruiting that he's talking about really falls back on Brian Kelly to this
100%.
point.
Yeah. 100%. Yep. 100%. And you know, if we're going down that road of like quarterback recruiting and development and all of those different things, the recruiting was subpar under Kelly. And I don't put that on Tommy Rees, because the quarterback had to go through Kelly.
Yeah.
Right. Had to. And once Kelly left, right, and once he gave kind of some control to Tommy Rees, he went out and got really good quarterbacks.
Last couple cycles have looked different, haven't they? Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like CJ Carr, check. Kenny Minchie, check. Right? Sam Hartman. He recruited Sam Hartman, check. Like, I don't blame Tommy Rees for not bringing in talent at quarterback. I don't.
I think it was almost Brian Kelly gave the stamp of approval and said, "Okay, here's what you're able to work with," type situation.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep. Agreed.
That's something Jess and I were talking about the other day. It's like Brian Kelly had this vision, or had this mold of what he thought he wanted at quarterback. And again, it's not like they didn't get some guys who were highly rated, but for whatever reason, you know, those guys by and large didn't work out.
Well, the development wasn't there, right? I mean, let's be honest.
Which is odd, because of the kind of program that Brian Kelly ran, which was a developmental program, you know. So
I agree. Yeah,
but not the quarterback position, which was supposed to be his thing, it never worked out for the most part, with very few exceptions.
I think just, again, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole per se, but like just too many voices in the ears of these quarterbacks over and over and over again, and it just became too much. Right? We've just heard way too many stories of one coach saying one thing and then another coach saying another thing, and they just didn't mesh. And that is like coaching 101, right? You always have to be on the same page as every other coach, using the same terminology, the same coaching points. You have to be the same, because if you're not, you're just going to screw with the quarterback's heads, or any position for that matter. And we saw Brian Kelly do that at a lot of different positions. The quarterback was by far the biggest one.
The worst one. Yep.
Yeah.
So, guys, some people are over Notre Dame playing in Ireland. Do you want to see the Irish play in Ireland?
You know, playing in Ireland makes no difference for me. Game started at normal Eastern time. I sat down and watched it just like any other game. And I would like to think that later down the road, when I had more resources at my dispense, I would, want to make that sort of trip. I think it's an experience. And I know that the fans and the people of Ireland really enjoyed it too. It seemed like it was like a not a takeover, but like, there was a lot of influence on Ireland. It was an all around experience, and the community became immersed. And, I just think it was overall a win-win for a lot of people. And I think, like I said, down the road, I wouldn't mind going myself at some point.
It's too many Guardians games. You wasted the money, dude. But no,
hey, we're only 9 wins away from 80.
You're right about that, buddy. So I guess I haven't gone to any of the Ireland games either. They're about 10 years apart from each other on average, right? It was what 11 years difference. I think it's kind of a home away from home for Notre Dame. I get it. Right. It makes a lot of sense. Would I like to see them go to some other places overseas? Yeah, I think that would be fun. Like maybe, I know this one's been talked about, but like go to Rome or something like that. I think you could have a pretty darn good following out there. I think there's some other destination type spaces that you could go. I think you should probably go like once every cycle of players. You know what I mean? So that every player at least gets one kind of overseas trip. I think that would be kind of cool if they could make that happen. I'm cool with Ireland. I think it's really cool, and Notre Dame plays really well in Ireland, so that's always a bonus. But yeah,
in Ireland.
I'm just saying. So I like it. I like a little change of venue. I mean, if you're going to do a Shamrock series, do it overseas, man. Have some fun with it.
Was that last Ireland one the one that opened the 2012 season?
It was.
Hopefully we see some nice parallels.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying.
Yes. And that's like every 10 years, I think it's fine. It makes sense. You're the Fighting Irish. It's Ireland. 40,000 Americans went over there. Somebody was
That's what
having
I mean.
fun.
Next time I'm there, there'll be pints of Guinness everywhere.
Yeah.
Do you like Guinness? Seriously?
I do, actually.
Ooh,
We both do.
It's
I know
not
you're
really, though. It just looks, it feels.
It looks thick, but
Yeah. It's not really.
But
It's
you're
like
not a coffee person either, are you?
No.
Vince?
It
Gosh,
almost tastes like coffee, like a low-level coffee milk to me.
Yeah,
That's
see,
really all it is.
That's a hard pass for me. Like my wife makes coffee and it like reeks the house. Like,
You mean it makes the house smell good? Come on.
horrible.
It energizes your morning.
Ugh. It gets me out of the house faster. Maybe that's why she does it.
Just don't get it. Just don't get it. But I'd be for it. I agree. Like maybe even like you do that every 10 years, and in the middle, like you go to Rome, maybe you go to Mexico City,
Right.
Paris, another one. Some of these different, even Germany, because the NFL is going to Germany now. I think that Notre Dame could potentially go there. I think that there are a lot of different places in Europe they could go, even like Australia. Maybe as another option.
Well, that one would be tough from a time zone.
That would be a trip. That would be a trip for sure.
You'd have to have a bye week after that one. There's
sure.
no doubt.
Yeah, that's right.
Only for the week, Vince.
So Sam Hartman, did you guys see at the end of the NBC broadcast, he brought out the team's new shillelagh?
Yes.
On NBC after the win over Navy, and he said they're going to start giving it to the Scout Team Player of the Week every week. Scale of 1 to 10. How much do you like it?
It's a 10 out of 10 for me. When I played, we had Scout Team jerseys that had like a big star on them for Players of the Week. It's nice to reward the guys who give 100% effort and maximum. They help prepare the team and their role, and it's nice to recognize them. And these guys are eventually, going to make their way onto the roster, hopefully themselves. So I think it's pretty cool. So I'll give it a solid 10 out of 10.
I'm right there with you. As a coach, you can't get anything unless you have a good scout team. I love recognizing scout team. Like at my son's school, if you get Scout Team Player of the Week 3 times, you letter. Like, at the high school level, that's awesome, right? They're never going to see the field, but you got an opportunity that like it's like a carrot, like dangling there. Like, hey, you get Scout Team Player of the Week 3 times, you get a letter. You know what I mean? And so
it's pretty good motivation, like for 100%. A guy who's not playing.
For like a sophomore that doesn't play.
Yeah, and they're still putting in the effort and time that everyone else is doing.
Exactly.
They just don't get to go out there and play in front of all the fans and then, reap the benefits of all the women that want them after the games.
Yeah.
And every team kind of has their own thing. I mean, what better for Notre Dame than a shillelagh like that? I do love that option. Like, that's fantastic.
I agree.
Sam Hartman's the king of mementos, I guess. First it was his rib, and now it's the shillelagh. I think we're seeing a pattern. Yeah. He likes his.
I like how the rib necklace came up again this week. My wife asked me, "Did you know that about this rib necklace that he?" Yes. That is like
it's talked about
months of this. Yes,
it was a thing at Wake Forest. Like that's how long this has been going on.
Right. Exactly. I like that he got this shillelagh from the King of Dublin, apparently, as well. Like
that's something I would say on national television.
Not sure what that was.
I love that so much. I was listening to it. I was like, wait, what? What
did he just feel his brain churning in the moment.
I rewound it on the DVR. I was like, King of Dublin? What is he talking about?
It's like when Marty McFly walks into his future house and they're like, Lord of the Manor, King of the Castle. Like, you're the king of something. Congratulations.
Oh, man. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Vegas is not offering a betting line on this Notre Dame Tennessee State game.
It's cowardice. Give me the line. Give me the over-under. Give me the Sam Hartman touchdowns. I want to take your money again. That's ultimately what it comes down to. Is I just don't think they have a grip on what Notre Dame is this season. I think that they really undervalued them offensively to start the season. They came out and shellacked Navy and put up a lot of, offensive statistics, and now they're going to play a worse team. And again, I just don't think that they have a good idea of what this team is going to look like. So they're just like, you know what? We're going to sit this one out. And it's probably what most of us should do as bettors and gamblers is, sit this one out. But It's rare that you see the sports book, sit it out. But I guess my pockets will be a little bit happier this weekend. I don't know. I wanted to bet on something.
Jesse, call it like it is. Another reason that Notre Dame shouldn't be playing an FCS team.
I like
Right?
that. That's
Because
very valid.
Most of the time, like when Alabama plays whatever directional school that they play, there's no line. They don't do lines for FCS games. And I get it because you just never know how the ebbs and the flows of that game is going to go. I mean, you're going to set the line at 50. Like, you just don't know how it's going to go. So I get it. But man, I want to bet. I want to be invested,
Yes.
baby. And
That's the thing is you want to be invested even in a crappy game. It gives you – oh,
Yes.
sorry, not crappy game, but a blowout of a game.
look,
It gives
you're
you
right,
something
though.
to extra to lock in and root for. It's like the game within the game almost. And
Yes.
I do agree that's the part that's like overall lacking the most. It's just even in a 50-point win, I want to win more. I want to hit that
Thank
spread
you.
bet, baby.
Thank you. And that, again,
That's what keeps it interesting.
another check mark for why they shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, all the sports books basically did a Notre Dame promotion last week. It was Notre Dame
Yeah.
money giveaway because their lines were so jacked up. Like Jesse was saying, they don't know what Notre Dame is anyway. So how could they possibly even set a line against an FCS school?
Right.
So,
Seriously. Well, they won money off of me.
I mean, well, I was going to say, raise your hand if you
Rated on
didn't
that.
win money last week on this game. Oh, you're the one.
I'm the one
That
because
figures. The week you've had, I'm not surprised.
Well, that's fair. Hey, I was named the fan of the game at the soccer game, though. So, yeah.
I'm sure you
All
were.
right. Got a free
you
hot
were.
dog out of the deal.
Your voice carries, Vince. It's not
Yeah.
hard to recognize where Vincent D'Addario is.
You're not wrong.
So
But
let's
no, yeah. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
let's do a few props of our own.
All
Will
right.
Notre Dame rush or pass for more yards in this game?
Pass. It's easy.
Rush, it's easy because they're going to be handing the ball off the whole second half.
I still think they're gonna allow Sam Hartman to do what he did last week for 3 quarters and just, especially against the 4-2-5. I think he's gonna cut it loose. He's gonna have about 4 or 5 touchdowns.
I
Write
think
these
they might
down.
run for 300 yards in this
Easy.
game.
Easy.
So I'm gonna go rush because I think he'll have more than 200 by halftime, but then I think they just plow the roads in the
Yep.
second half.
Yep.
You're sadly mistaken.
Sean, write these down because we're going to revisit them.
They're gonna
Okay.
run screen plays, and it's just gonna be extension of the run
Dude,
game.
it is going to Audric Estime is
Tunnel
going to
screens.
Audric
Yeah, but that's
Estime
the
is going
easy
to look
thing.
like
They know
an
they can do
adult.
that.
He's
They
going to
know
look
they
like
can
an
do that.
adult playing against toddlers. They're just going to be bouncing off of him left and right. Rush yards, baby. Rush yards.
Got it written down.
All right.
Which number will be greater, touchdown passes for Hartman or turnovers forced by the Irish defense?
That's a good one.
Touchdowns by Sam Hartman. It's another easy one.
This one I'm with the kid. I agree. I think he could end up with 4 or 5 touchdowns on this one. I think Notre Dame was going to turn them over, but I don't think they're going to do it 4 or 5 times.
I think they're looking at 3 maximum.
Yeah,
turnovers.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm in that range as well. And I'm trying to decide again, like how many touchdowns Hartman will end up with just because the game goes the way it should go. I think he'll have at least 3. Like the combination of the like what that looks like, that makes me wonder, does
Sure.
he get to 4? But I mean, he could have 3 or 4 in the first quarter for that matter.
He could.
But I'm going to go I'm going to go with the touchdown passes over the
Especially if there's
forced
turnovers.
fumbles.
If they give him short fields, like it could
Yeah.
be easy pickings.
I wish
So,
FanDuel was, FanDuel usually runs promotions like specials for games. Like, will a team have a passing touchdown every quarter? Will a team have a touchdown every quarter? That I would be absolutely all over that. Notre Dame is going to score in every quarter of this game. The backups are going to score.
Will Audric Estime have more total yards from scrimmage than Tennessee State's total yards of offense?
Yep. Yes. 100%. Yes.
I'm gonna go
Right.
no because I think there's 5 of them that played last week, and I don't think there's gonna be a division of those numbers. I think you're gonna see a lot of the younger guys later on in the game. So I think he gets his. He'll go over 100. But I think I still think Tennessee State will have maybe 200 combined offense or total yards. So saying that Audric goes for more than like 150 to 200, I just think if they've shown they're going to play 5 running backs, so I think they're just going to disperse it a little bit.
You know, if Audric played the whole game, even with subbing,
Yeah.
this would be a yes, right? And Jesse's 100% right. I don't think Audric really plays all that much, if I'm being honest. I don't think he's going to get a whole lot of touches because I don't think they need to. He needs to have fresh legs at the end of the season, and I think he's going to be on a bit of a pitch count.
Yeah.
I mean,
they had him on a pitch count during training camp. Why
Right.
would you put him out there
Right.
more than you need? But it also kind of makes you question again why he was out there on the final drive of the game last week when it was 42-3.
I think he swapped. I think he kind of swapped positions with one of the other guys because he fumbled. I think that's honestly what it was.
Yeah, I think he got cleanup duty for his fumble.
Yeah.
Good point. I still wouldn't have risked putting him out in that situation. But
I get it.
Yeah, I agree. I think Tennessee State will at least slightly have more. The question will be, does Audric bust off a couple of early runs or something like that? You know, I could easily see him getting to 150, and I think that is probably around the max for Tennessee State in this game because I just don't see them being very successful, a team that gave up 37 sacks last season.
Yeah, so, it's going to be ugly.
Yeah. Which number will be greater? Steve Angeli's pass attempts or Tobias Meriwether's receptions?
Ooh, another easy one.
Go ahead then, easy guy.
It's going to be receptions.
Hit that easy button.
It's going to be boom. It's going to be receptions. All right, Jesse, it's going to be receptions because everybody wants to see Steve go out there and sling the ball around. We're all going to be disappointed. That's not going to happen. So I think Meriwether's going to get a handful of catches, and I don't see Angeli getting a handful of throws.
This question is actually harder than what Vince made it seem to be, but I'm going to agree with him at the end of the day. I think that Tobias maximally at maximum gets 4 receptions. I think 3 to 4 is where you'll see. 5 is like where I would set the absolute ceiling. So I'm going to stick with 4 receptions for somewhere around, where he'll end up. And I think Steve Angeli, I think this is a game where you let your backup quarterback cut it a little loose too. And then maybe you see a little bit of Kenny Minchie in the last, 4 or 5 minutes of the game. So I wouldn't be surprised if they let Steve Angeli run the offense from about the end of the third to like maybe midway through the fourth quarter. So I think you're going to see some attempts out of him. And that's the thing. It's only going to be minimal. I don't think you're going to see him cut it like 10 times. It's going to be around kind of that 4 or 5 range. I think it's going to be really close. But I'm going to take slightly. I might almost take the option that it's going to be equal at the end of the day. I think I'm going to go in between. I'm going to say those numbers are going to equal each other.
That's a cop out. You got to go one or the other on this. That's what makes it tough.
House wins, dealer wins on the push.
I'm going to go Meriwether though. I think I think he's at least 3 receptions. I don't think Angeli throws more than a couple of passes. Unless somehow it's like 45-0 at halftime and he comes out and gets to run the offense the entire third quarter. It very easily could be 45-0 at halftime. How they approach this whole substitution thing is going to be a question because they had a pretty good lead. It took until the very last series last week before they finally let Angeli see the field. And now, Kenny Minchie has come up over the last couple of days as well. Do you think Kenny Minchie actually plays in this game?
Yeah, I think he touches the ball the last 4 or 5 minutes of the game.
Yeah, I think he'll be in there for like supreme mop-up duty. And I also think I think this is a great opportunity to get a lot of your walk-ons in the game too. And that's probably who he's going to be handing the ball off to and, all of those different things. And so while, after you get your 2s in and stuff like that, I think there's going to be a drive or 2 at the end of the game, offensively, defensively, where you're going to see some walk-ons get in the game. I think that is the way this game should go. Whether it will go that way, we'll see. But I do think when that's the case, when the walk-ons start coming in, I think that's when Kenny gets his opportunity to see the field. Because if you look at the rest of the schedule, okay, let's say you're trying to redshirt Kenny Minchie, which I think that I'm sure that they are, right? Do we really anticipate 3 more games that he's even going to get in? Because he can still redshirt at that point.
Well, but you're still early in the season, and I hesitate to even say it, but getting through the entire season, like if something were to happen to number 10, then Angeli becomes the starter, and all of a sudden Kenny Minchie, so then
Well, yeah, but I don't even see any other games that Kenny Minchie's going to get into. So you still got 3 games ready to go.
yeah, because it is going to be a much more competitive schedule the rest of the way.
Yes, absolutely. And they get into your third quarterback. That's tough. That's
Tough
generally
look on the other team.
Utah's on its third quarterback to open the season. So.
well, and they're
Are they? Oh, actually, hang on. That reminds me. I placed a bet a little bit ago about that game.
They're playing 2 quarterbacks pretty consistently. So
over under 5.5 sacks by the Irish in this game.
This was a hard number for me. Vince is, I don't know what he's doing over there, but I'm going to take the under, and it's going to stick right on 5. I think 5 is the number you'll see. I think their quarterbacks are a little bit elusive. Their offensive line is bad, but hey, I looked up some stats. The last time that they played a Power 5 school, Mississippi State, back in 2021, Mississippi State, granted not as good as Notre Dame, only got them down 3 times, 3 sacks. So I'm going to add 2 more for Notre Dame and still take that under at 5. But I think the 5.5 is, again, you should be working for FanDuel because these lines are tough today.
I thought they played. I thought the team that they played was Eastern whatever.
Middle Tennessee.
Middle Tennessee. Thank you. I thought that's who they played. Am I wrong about that?
Hey, fact check me if you want.
I'm in the process of.
I know they played Mississippi State at some point. I don't know what year it was, but the last couple FBS teams they played is Middle Tennessee.
Gotcha.
But Power 5, probably Mississippi.
Well, they played Mississippi State. You're right. At the end of the year, and they lost 10-55.
I shouldn't have brought this up. You're not going to.
I'm going over. A team that gave up 37 sacks last year, and Middle Tennessee State was the best school that they played. And what this Notre Dame, I think Notre Dame's defensive front is just going to annihilate Tennessee State.
Yeah.
So
it's a hard over, Sean. This is a hard over. I think they're going to be in the backfield for Tennessee State all game long.
Write this one down. Write this one down.
We didn't give our score predictions last week, so go around quick.
I blame Vince for that.
That's my I was the one with the heart out last week.
That's right. We were rushing, weren't we?
Yeah.
I'll take the first one.
Okay, hit it.
It's going to be 62-3. That's my final score. I think you sneak in 8 touchdowns, about 4 passing, 4 rushing. That gets you to 56. I think the field goal kicker needs to get a couple up after missing last week. So you'll get, maybe a field goal or 2 with the backups in. So that's where it's either going to be 59-3 or 62-3. You could book it right now.
Book it.
Wow. Book it, Dano. Yeah, I'm kind of in that neighborhood. I'll bring it down a little bit. I will say 57-7. 57-7. A good 50-point win. I don't know how they're going to get to 57. Just the number that I decided to go with. So 57-7. I think they sneak one in at some point.
We're not far off. I don't see them finding the end zone. I've got 55-6. I'm giving them a couple of field goals is what I'm giving them. So I'm giving them 55-6. Big day for Sam Hartman. A lot of guys play. And again, what the substitution pattern looks like, how they decide to do that.
Yeah.
That's going to be, it's going to be kind of, I think what a lot of us are really going to be looking at in this. Be curious to see on Monday how many people are disappointed with who did or didn't get in potentially.
Seriously.
We'll hear a lot of that, I'm sure. All right. Well, that is going to do it. Don't forget the post-game show comes your way after the game on the Irish Breakdown
we see you there
channels.
Of course. Ryan and I are kicking it off, baby. Woo-woo!
I'm sure you'll have lots to talk about.
Enjoy. Jesse, enjoy your camping trip.
Thank you.
Uh-oh. You going to be on TV out there?
We'll see. This is one of those games where if you miss it, it's like, dang, did I miss the Tennessee State?
That's fair. That's fair.
This is one of those weekends where you just compromise, Vince, because the big ones are coming up.
Never compromise with Notre Dame football, Jesse.
I might have to. I don't want to be sitting on the raft in the water and drop my phone in there trying to watch a Notre Dame football game.
Don't blame you.
Just watch the halftime show. It'll be the most entertaining thing, probably.
We will talk to you next week. IB Countdown to Kickoff in the books.